Hey Kings, and welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel. Today we're back on France, however, today we're actually going to be playing Communist France. And this is sort of a longer video, and I wanted to basically, instead of splitting up the individual paths you can do with Communist France, I wanted to do one kind of a longer video, however, going down each and every path that is available to a Communist France, because I think that it's worth experimenting with, and the paths are similar enough to, well, splitting up the individual paths just seemed a little bit irrational. So today we're going to be doing a thorough examination of the individual possibilities that are given to the player when choosing to go communist as France. And well, basically starting off with something that is the closest to democracy as possible, sort of easing our way into the spiciness, you could say. And so today at the beginning we're going to be doing it's like the anti-fascist lines or something like that, where you go down the more social democratic path that is allowed to France. We're not gonna be doing the revolution to the utmost. Instead, we're gonna be doing the reconciliation and then joining Britain and the Allies, and that's the beginning. Because I do think that all the individual communist paths that are open to France are, from like a historical playthrough, obviously a bit strange, but from gameplay perspective, it actually is quite a bit more powerful than going democratic, because as we already examined the options available to France when going down the Straits front, which was quite powerful, going down the Little Entente, which is absolutely weak, infuriating, and completely pathetic. And so today we're going to be examining sort of the extension of the democratic path, which is just going with Britain as communist France. And that is actually kind of interesting, because just sort of brainstorming before we actually get into it, sort of the setup phase, it's kind of interesting because it's so powerful, right? In theory, it's incredibly powerful. You do still retain the alliance with Britain. You do still get to protect Czechoslovakia. You invite Czechoslovakia into the Allies. But as well, you get the refugees, obviously. The refugees, the anti-fascist refugees or something like that. And you gain ticking manpower weekly, I think it's weekly or monthly, or 1,000 manpower, which is insane, right? That's infinite manpower. If you play until like 1950, you gain like, 30 divisions just from that. It's insane, right? And or even more, obviously, but it's obviously insane. You can play basically till the year 2000, and you're still going to be having incredible, basically no manpower issues at all. You're going to be having quite a lot of manpower because, you have ticking infinite manpower. That's quite good. And you also gain plus 5% to research speed, which is actually quite strong. Now, the downside to this whole initial thing, is that you obviously have to move up the date of the war quite a bit sooner, similar to how we did it with the Little Entente, where instead of starting the war at 1939, 1940, whichever you choose, you essentially have to start a war at 1938 or 1937, whenever the Germans decide to do the Munich Conference or the Sudeten Crisis, essentially. Demand is still the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia. However, this time, again, just speculating here, this time, because the Czechoslovakia is invited to the Allies, right, and because it's sort of a unique focus tree, is not exactly historical, the Czechoslovakians are invited to the Allies. The British should defend them. Because usually if you do the Little Entente, it's up to you to defend the Czechoslovakians. The British completely stay out of it. They never defend Czechoslovakia. However, this time the Czechoslovakia is going to be in the Allies, and as a result, the British should defend them, because obviously it's a member of their alliance and everything like that. So not only do you gain Czechoslovakia, which is arguably the strongest member of the Little Entente, which we did previously. Romania is quite strong, but Czechoslovakia has quite good military advisors. They also have the Fort Line there, which is obviously extremely strong, on the Sudeten Fort Line. And so that should sort of counterbalance it out a little bit. But also you gain Britain, which is something that was severely lacking from our Little Entente playthrough, if you remember. We moved up the date of the war, but we didn't gain a major power as a counterbalancing force for basically, protecting the entire Balkan region as well as Czechoslovakia. We didn't gain a major, sort of a major power. We gained 3 little powers or minor powers or whatever you want to call it. But this time, Britain, instead of entering the war in 1939 with the German declaration of Poland or alternatively the Low Countries, this time we're going to gain Britain from 1938 or 1937, whenever the Germans decide to do the Sudan crisis. And that is incredibly powerful, for one, because obviously you can rely on their navy a tiny bit. Obviously it's not completely reliable, 100%, because the British do, again, like oil. You have even less oil, so your navy is sort of but you can just import all of that from the United States. And Britain does import from the United States as well, yeah. So it's it should be, well, it's always good to have a major country on your side as opposed to the little countries or middle powers that we tested out already with this Tracer front. It's obviously better to have one big country than 3 smaller countries. In theory, it should balance each other out, but realistically doesn't. And Britain is actually quite a good country to have inside, obviously because of their great navy. But again, the British AI, it's not just the British AI, you also have all the Dominions and India, all the colonial stuff, so it's actually quite powerful, because all the individual AIs, they do tend to differentiate when it comes to their tendency to invade and stuff like that. For example, the British AI is a little bit passive, but the Australian, Canadian, Indian, New Zealand AI, they do tend to be quite aggressive with their naval invasions and their sort of attacks. So I do think we're gonna gain quite a bit of strength from that, because we're playing Communist France. I decided to do mass assault, to really roleplay this communist path. Because while the communists, by the way, isn't it kind of funny? We're doing women's suffrage, but once we go communist, no voting. So yeah, great suffrage there. But anyway, it should be a little bit more powerful than the baseline democratic path, just because we do gain obviously Britain. But as well as that, the bonuses you gain from the communist path, even if you're just going with Britain. For one, you're actually playing an ideology that can have a little bit more fun. You can go to war economy a little bit sooner. You can change your manpower laws a little bit sooner. It's all just a lot more fun, obviously. As well as you do gain quite a lot of bonuses from it all. Whereas when you go democratic and you really want to go historical, you still do all the leftist or basically the popular front economic bonuses. You still gain that. If you go communist, you still gain that, obviously. So that sort of balances each other out. But you gain more political power. You gain infinite manpower, obviously ticking manpower. You gain more research. You gain Britain on side. You gain Czechoslovakia on side. It's sort of the historical path, if you decide to go with the popular front, really doesn't have a lot of benefits as opposed to just going with, well, the communist side and joining the British, if you want to really play historically. So from that perspective, I think it's just baseline better. If you really like the popular front economic bonuses, then well, just do that instead of doing the historical democratic path. Now, obviously, it might be tempting to finish your military focuses first, everything like that. It's basically the same issue as we discussed with the Little Entente. You really don't have a lot of time, because the war is moving up to in 1938 instead of 1939 or 1940. You don't have a lot of time to do your military focuses, and you don't basically have enough time to prepare the fort line or anything like that. However, since we're going to be playing as a communist nation, I think it's more appropriate to just charge. Just charge them, just do the mass assault. And I'm gonna be doing mass assault with each and every one of the paths we're gonna be analyzing today. So it should be a little bit more interesting. However, I'm not entirely sure. It seems like it's gonna be really powerful. That's just theory crafting, though. The Little Entente should have been really powerful as well, but we all know how that turns out usually. A complete disaster, right? So, Yeah, hopefully it's really powerful. I think it's going to be really powerful. Just looking at the focuses, just sort of theory crafting it, just sort of analyzing the individual aspects to go into performing the adequate operations when it comes to playing France as a communist nation and going with Britain. It seems like it's going to be really powerful, but well, we're just going to have to see. Now here is a screen you don't see too often. The British actually decided to protect Czechoslovakia. That's actually really good for us, because it means instead of, just us protecting Czechoslovakia, it means that the Germans have to now focus not just, basically on the French front line, the Western Front. They also have to worry about the British Navy. They also have to worry about their convoys getting sunk and everything like that. And obviously, we still don't have all of our military stuff done. There you go, the Germans declared war. We obviously don't have all of our military stuff done yet. But wait, because the Czechoslovakians should still be guaranteed by Romania. Yeah, they're still guaranteed by Romania. So does that mean that effectively we gain Romania as well? I think that should mean that we do gain Romania. Yep, there we go. We gain Romania as well. Oh my goodness, this is actually kind of amazing. So the Little Entente, it's just worthless, because the only country you don't get is Yugoslavia, and Yugoslavia is the weakest link. But anyway, let's just bash our head against the Germans, because we really want to distract them as much as possible. As much as possible, they really shouldn't be focusing on Czechoslovakia at all. We saw how that went with the Little Entente. They completely annihilated the entirety of the Little Entente within 2 months. And so now, with the help of the British and the Romanians as well, obviously, we should hopefully be able to at least distract them long enough with our just absolutely irrational tactic of just smashing ourselves against the Germans. We should hopefully be able to protect them a little bit, just a little bit. The Italians aren't in the war yet. So that's pretty good. Obviously, I still have troops down there because, well, the Italians might join whichever side whenever. So that's, yeah, that they're not exactly reliable in their timing. And that's also when it comes to, like, historical settings, because the Italians basically joined the Axis after the Sudan crisis, or basically after the Munich conference. So, in this sort of setting, I'm not too sure when the Italians actually joined the Axis and when they decide to join the war, because they only joined the war when Paris was about to fall. So this is a bit of a new one. The Italian AI tends to join the war just whenever, so I think it's better to actually have those troops down there. Gonna stop the bashing for a little bit, because yeah, we're gonna just completely deplete everything. That's obviously not gonna be the greatest scenario, but you can see here that the impact of the British sort of RAF, I suppose you could call it. The RAF is really putting up quite a lot of work. The French don't have the best industry at the beginning, and I'm sort of always debating this, whether it's better to just focus on the air at the beginning of the game, or whether it's better to, I don't know, focus on the military, focus on anti-air. As France is a little bit, you have like 9 military factories at the beginning, so you have to really balance your guns out, your support equipment out, your artillery out, but as well you really want some air, right? So it's you could go pure infantry and just play defensively like that. It's kind of possible. But at the same time, you can do that with just better divisions, right? So might as well prepare a little bit earlier. And maybe the Germans won't be attacking that soon, but they always do anyway, and it's kind of annoying. But that's one thing that you always struggle with as France. So the RAF is actually really helpful here, because the Luftwaffe, obviously, they're flying everywhere around Germany, they're bombing Czechoslovakia, they're trying to get ahead of us. But obviously with the Little Entente, they completely destroyed the Little Entente Air Force, and then they destroyed our Air Force over Germany. But the RAF, that's one thing that the British do have. They don't have the best AI when it comes to attacking, but they do have the best Navy in 1939, that is. They have the best Navy, they have one of the best Air Force, like, bonuses, everything like that. Their Air Force is probably the best in the game, ultimately. And their army is of high enough quality for it to actually matter. And they also have all the dominions, they have India, everything like that. So the British are a great help here. It's obviously possible to do the Little Entente and get the British on side if Churchill, storms into power, essentially. if they do the no more appeasement focus, but that rarely happens on non-historical. That very rarely happens unless you set it up. So it's and even then the British in that case scenario, they really do have a very lackluster well, stability and war support. Well, they do have a lot of war support, they don't have a lot of stability in that case. And they tend to just go ham, they tend to invade Iraq, Iran, the Netherlands, which is actually quite hilarious. But, yeah, they just tend to go ham, so in this case, I think this is probably better even than if Churchill gets into power, because it's still standard old Britain just willing to protect the Czechoslovakians. And it's also better for us because if you go as France and you decide to, well, defend Czechoslovakia, you know, France protect its friends or whatever that decision is called, it's, you lose a whole bunch of stability, a whole bunch of political power, a whole bunch of war support. In this case, I think the British tanked that sort of debuff, and I don't think they do have such a severe debuff as the French do. And even if they do, the British aren't in such a terrible position as the French are. They don't have as low stability, as low war support, and as bad a political power situation as the French are in. So it's yeah. Well, as you can see, the front has sort of stabilized a tiny bit. That's sort of a good sign because, well, the Germans aren't attacking Czechoslovakia. The Italians haven't joined the war yet, and we are actually kind of pushing. We pushed one tile in, which is honestly more than I expected. But it's well, it's kind of a good sign, maybe, of things to come, hopefully. But well, we'll see about that. So far, the front is sort of stable. Nothing's really shifted that much. But well, the Little Entente lasted 2 months, and we've been now fighting for essentially the same amount of time. And the Little Entente still stands, kind of, with Romania and Czechoslovakia. So, yeah, that's kind of good. It also means that if the Romanians tend to backstab us again and pull us into war with the Soviet Union, then the British are inside as well, so we don't have to worry about that. One thing that's actually kind of interesting about the French communist tree is that you don't actually get a whole bunch of communism from it, meaning you still have to take the communist advisor. I think that's sort of weak. I think that's sort of weak because, well, it's sort of an off-topic here, obviously, but what that means is that obviously you still have to pay quite a lot of political power to gain a lot of stability, because a lot of stability is tied to the popularity of your ideology or your quote-unquote political party or whatever you want to call it. Actually managing to punch through the Germans here, that's quite a unique situation. I think it's because of the bombing. You can see that the RAF is actually doing quite a lot of work here. The Germans can't focus their ground support on the Western Front or basically the Czechoslovakian front. They really have to split up their focus all around Germany, because the British, well, they do have quite a lot of bombers at the beginning of the game, so they might be actually kind of just bombing everywhere. That's what's the slag, man? Hearts of Iron 4. Oh, the German Civil War. Oh man, this is an event that I was really hoping for when we played the Little Entente, but it just never popped up. This happens if Germany is attacking Czechoslovakia, demanding the Sudetenland essentially, and they don't manage to gain the Sudetenland through war essentially. So you just enter into a democratic civil war, which is actually something that realistically really could have happened because of the Sudan crisis. This is really, it's really amazing, man. Immediately, this focus tree path seems like 20 times better than the Little Entente path because of the RAF, because of the British Navy, because of the, well, just Britain in general being on our side. We actually managed to stagnate the front for so long that the Germans entered into civil war. Man, this path seems like basically the Little Entente, but like 50 times better, and you don't have to lose Djibouti to the Italians. Actually do have quite a lot of political power because of women's suffrage, even though we're communists and we don't vote at all, but whatever. And yeah, we're just going to completely annihilate the Germans here, man. This is, yeah, just as I thought, this is actually really interesting. It's kind of a shame that we didn't get a lot of bonuses from the ticking manpower and the research speed and anything like that. Enough time hasn't passed for that to really go into effect. But theoretically, since you're in the Allies, you can really now take the fight to the Soviets even, to the Italians, to the Japanese. You can basically conquer the world at this point if you really want to, because you're communist, you have infinite manpower, and well, the main threat of the game, which is, well, here come the Italians, which is kind of a stupid time to join, to be honest, but whatever. Because your main threat, that being Germany, obviously, is now completely neutralized. Essentially, you can just do whatever you want. And so that seems like it would be... yeah, that seems actually kind of OP. Actually, one thing that could pose a big problem if you're planning to go communist and use it, you know, as basically the better version of just a democratic, well, France, is that when you switch ideology, the individual, well, you don't get as much compliance from your colonial regions as you do normally. So if you're planning to go down and basically, well, maybe, you know, do France indivisible, everything like that, maybe it would be better to wait until you gain more compliance, or do the focus through your industrial path to actually gain more compliance. You do gain more compliance when being a communist just naturally, I think, through a few focuses, but it might actually be better just to wait a bit or do the compliance focus after you've already turned communist when it comes to the industrial path, because you do lose quite a bit of compliance, so maybe it's actually better to, I don't know, but you know, it seems like that's the only real downside, the compliance issue with your colonial region. So you do have to employ more stricter rules. Maybe some of the regions might revolt. For example, Central Africa for some reason likes to revolt quite a bit, which is not a big issue, obviously, and it's not like there's going to be any fighting going on there. But for example, in Algeria, you can just circumvent that whole issue by just coring the region, obviously, which is actually quite powerful in itself. But look at me being just completely annihilated in Libya while we push Italy in on the mainland. It's actually quite interesting. This is the one time that the Italians don't lose the African front, is when they just lose everything else. That's the one time they didn't lose the Libyan front, yeah. But obviously Italy is actually putting quite a bit of a fight, more than I expected. But we obviously had the German army on our side, that's actually insane. I never really thought that we'd get to, we'll get to see this event, this playthrough at least, because kind of a hope for it in the Little Entente, but then this playthrough we really didn't need it. But we just got it, so I think that's, well, it's powerful. Obviously, it's a sort of just a bonus. It helps you end the war, quicker. If we didn't get the event, we'd probably just stagnate the front. The British would gain more planes. The Germans would stagnate more. They wouldn't be able to gain as much power, obviously, because they'd still have to fight Czechoslovakia and then Romania. So it would still be quite a long war, I think, but because of the Civil War, I'm not entirely sure what the exact circumstances have to be for you to gain the Civil War. But well, needless to say, it was actually quite helpful here because there we go. We don't actually get to take everything from Germany, which is quite a shame. But yeah, by the way, yeah, all the mods listed down below in the description. Just thought I'd say that, you know, halfway through the video. But hey, there we go. Moving on to the loyalty to Moscow path. Alright, revert to the save and going with loyalty to Moscow. Now, this is an interesting one when it comes to the communist playthrough, because it's the most boring one out of all of them, I think. If you look at actually the focuses, you don't get a whole bunch, which I think is a bit of a shame. You'd think that you'd gain some sort of at least a military bonus, because, for example, when you go with Britain as a communist nation, you gain infinite manpower and more research. If you do the just independent, you know, sort of a more revolutionary path, which is the last one, you gain a lot of industrial bonuses, a lot of military bonuses, and you get to declare war on just about anyone. But with the loyalty to Moscow, you really only get well, volunteers. And when are you actually going to be able to use those volunteers? We're only in the Spanish Civil War, which we're already boosting them with just guns and stuff, so they're just going to win. But only the Spanish Civil War, maybe the Soviet War against Finland, basically the Winter War, and then you're already in the Comintern, the main war against Germany. So I don't know, maybe you can support Poland for like 5 seconds. It seems a bit strange. It seems a bit weak, and well, you do gain compliance, but other than compliance, I don't know. It's just a little bit weak, this one. It seems, I don't know, like compared to the previous one, which is insanely powerful. It's like the Little Entente on steroids, because you get Britain, you get infinite manpower, you get research. This one is like, yeah, you joined the Comintern. Okay. I mean, that's cute. You know, it's not. Yeah, we can definitely support Spain with everything we have. So yeah, basically we're gonna help Spain. I guess we're gonna help Spain, but that's about it. And I suppose you can send volunteers to Spain. I suppose we could, I don't know. What are you meant to do in this focus path? Like, exactly, you're supposed to... Well, basically, I guess this path is sort of simulating the... Whereas with the Little Entente and the path when we go with Britain, I suppose that one has debuff, quote-unquote debuff, obviously, of moving the war up like by like 2 years or something. Or theoretically, you know, 1 year to 2 years, because you can just not join the war at all, and you can just wait for the Germans to declare directly on you, I suppose. But in this case, we're moving the war just back in by 1942, you know, 1941. So we're moving it back by like 2 years. So technically, as opposed to the Little Entente or when going with Britain, we're moving it back by like 3 years. 4 years in some cases, when the Germans really don't want to invade and really don't want to invade the Soviet Union, which actually sometimes happens because they don't have France and they don't have the industrial power of France or Vichy France, you know, just boosting them. I guess that could be the case. Sometimes that just happens. And so I guess, you know, one of the buffs of going with Moscow is that you just have a lot of time, and that, I guess, is a buff. It allows you to do quite a lot of your military stuff. Obviously, your military stuff should be long finished when you actually do eventually get into war against Germany when you join Moscow. And it allows you to do more of the industrial stuff. You gain more, theoretically, more manpower. You gain more divisions and like that. But the downside to that is that, well, the Germans have had quite a lot of time to prepare as well, and they haven't really had to fight anyone before you, right? They've only theoretically finished off Poland and the Low Countries and Denmark and Norway, which aren't major powers, and maybe they fought in Africa a little bit, but you know, it just doesn't seem, they don't have to suppress as many regions. They don't have to worry about an invasion from anywhere, right? They don't have to worry about a D-Day at all for like 4 years, or 3 years more rather. And so it's you know, 2 years if you really want to go with the strict timeline. But it's I don't know, it seems a little bit, you gain 2 years of power, right? You get 2 years of theoretically building up your strength. Now obviously you can go revolution to the utmost and then join with Moscow. However, again, you know, you do gain a couple of bonuses from that, but you lose a few divisions, a few troops, and, well, obviously a few divisions, and some manpower when you go through a civil war, and you really don't want to go through a civil war when you're gonna just, you know, eventually gonna get attacked by Germany. I don't know, it seems like it's kind of meh. It's like the standard communist route, like you joined the Soviets, wow, great deal, you know? It doesn't seem that great, and obviously the compliance stuff, that's cute, but it implies that you're gonna be attacking, whereas the Germans, probably when they attack the Soviets, and you obviously, they're probably going to have a lot of divisions. You're probably going to be defending for most of the time anyway, as well as your major ally, right, your main ally, is still going to go through the debuffs of the Great Purge. Oh, Spain is just a complete mess. Look at that, the Carlist uprising, really, the Carlists, the anarchists, and the main guys, and obviously nationalist Spain. It's a complete mess. But, well, I don't know, it could be, let's just revoke these guarantees because we don't care anymore. And, well, if Italy accidentally just declares war on them or something, that would be quite a pain. But yeah, so, I don't know, it seems like Uh, Actually, revoking those guarantees is actually kind of smart because we're not going to be entering into the Allies, or we're not going to be at war with Germany. Eventually, they're going to declare war on Yugoslavia, or at least possibly declare war on Yugoslavia. So, yeah, revoking those guarantees is actually a good thing. So, yeah, there we go. Wait, let's wait until something happens because we do have quite a lot of time, and well, hopefully something's going to happen. I got bored, so I sent volunteers to Spain. I suppose might as well make use of the bonuses we get for, well, we get to sending volunteers. And, yeah, might as well. I mean, the Spanish conflict for the Republicans is really unfortunate. Even if you're supporting, I mean, the Soviets are here. We've sent them, I don't know how many guns. We've sent them just basically all the support we could send, we sent. But still, it's like they're losing. Basically, they push the nationalists all the way to like the last bastion the nationalists have up in the north, right? Like far beyond the starting provinces. They're still losing. I don't know what the historical focus is for Republican Spain. They're just so unfortunate. They're just so unfortunate. Where did they go with the Stalins? Where did they go democratic? Where did they go independent? It's, well, independent. When you go independence, they're not actually the Republicans, but they're so unfortunate. I don't know why, but the nationalists just they're just steamrolling. Maybe it's the German divisions. Maybe it's the well, the combination of German, Italian, and Portuguese divisions is really strong because well, the Republicans do gain actually some divisions from obviously from the Soviet Union, like 9 divisions or 8 divisions usually. But initially, they're actually a big help. But eventually, the Soviets are always going to do the Great Purge. And at that point, the volunteer divisions from the Soviet Union aren't actually all that great. They're more of just regular divisions of Spain, right? So, you know, when it comes to like strength, you know, because the Soviets obviously get the minus 50% debuff to organization, everything like that, so you might as well just have some regular infantry there from Spain. And so maybe sending volunteers here is gonna help somewhat, but I still haven't done most of my military focus. It's only 1939, obviously. So I don't know. Hopefully, gonna do something. Hopefully, gonna make Spain. I don't know. The Republicans win the civil war, but as I said, I've sent them. I don't know how many guns. I've sent them. I don't know how many trucks and support equipment, everything like that. And they're still losing. They're still losing, even with all that support. It seems, and the nationalists had to go through that Carlist uprising as well. It's kind of a strange one. It's kind of a strange in the Civil War. It's like before Waking the Tiger, Franco always won. The nationalists always won, which is actually good. And during Waking the Tiger, the Republicans always won. You know, Jose Diaz always won. And that was a big issue because even in historical they were winning. But in an alternate setting like this, right, where the French are directly supporting the Republicans with like everything in the kitchen sink, right, you'd think that the nationalists would just lose eventually, and the Republicans initially were, winning by quite a large margin, and then the nationalists had to go through a civil war and everything like that, and it seems like they'd win. It seems like the Republicans would actually have quite an easy time winning, but I guess not. Well, it's quite unfortunate to have him as an ally if they're just gonna, well, suck. Okay, here we go, May 1941. Finally, Germany breaks Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. I have actually been, just messing with the spies in Germany quite a bit because, well, what else am I gonna do? I had to wait until 1941 to actually do anything. It's almost like you're playing the United States, which is probably the most boring thing you can actually do in this game, because you have to wait until 1941 to get any action. But, hey, got into a war eventually. The British obviously completely lost the African front. However, they did take the islands of Italy and also Albania, so I don't know, hopefully we're just gonna completely annihilate the Germans. This is my hope, because I've obviously had quite a few years to prep, and well, the Soviets are actually on our line, which is that's a bit strange. Stalin, you should probably move those guys to your front, because, well, you're currently being attacked, as well as, just pushed back, probably. But here we go, gonna completely just mass assault them. They're also attacking us, because I guess they're confident. But we're gonna give the British some, give the British, non-aggression pact, everything like that. And the standard strategy of France when it comes to the Mediterranean, just protect your side and don't really let the Italians do much. But we managed to get Spain, obviously, and I think, they're democratic. Obviously, they went down the completely boring part of their focus during they actually stay democratic. You'd think, I don't know, maybe if France goes communist and they stay with Moscow, maybe the Spanish should somehow flip to being pro-Stalinist. It would make sense, right? Because they're being influenced by two countries. One of them which is directly on their border to be Stalinist, but I guess not. That's just not how these focus trees work, so that's just not how that's just not how Hoi 4 works. And Victoria 2, that would actually be the case, but not in this game. And so, here we go. Hopefully we're gonna just completely annihilate the Germans, because I've been just sitting in France for so long, just doing all these industry things, just kind of bored. We're already pushing Italy back, obviously. Already pushing them in Libya, might as well push them in, like, Sudan and stuff. Gonna ask for that, ask for the military access, because, well, kinda need that to, clear Africa, obviously, but I think that should be just pathetically easy, because, well, I don't know. We've had, like, 3 years of build-up just for this, The Spanish Civil War has been completely won, so the Germans do actually gain quite a bit of army XP from that, but they've already gained quite a lot of army XP from taking out Poland, Low Countries, everything like that, and we're completely annihilating the Germans. We're just completely smashing them. Whoever said mass assault sucked was completely wrong. Mass assault is actually a legitimate doctrine. If you actually have a major power, if you're playing a major power, and you have quite a lot of manpower at your disposal, the mass assault doctrine is actually not that bad, because you do gain a few bonuses to supply. You obviously have quite a lot of reinforcement rate and stuff like that, so it's not actually all that bad. It's not a meme anymore. Superior firepower is obviously the best, but it gets quite boring. And since we're playing communist France, might as well roleplay a little bit, and especially because we're going Stalinist or we're loyal to Moscow, might as well just, roleplay a bit and go with the mass assault doctrine. I think it's quite a good meme, so there we go. Absolutely demolishing them, liberating Belgium here. And I don't think the Germans really do stand a chance at this point. Whenever, that's, I guess, one saving grace of loyalty to Moscow, is that you're just gonna win. If you know what you're doing even a little bit, you don't even have to build up a fort line or anything like that. Just wait, and then you can just win. I suppose that's one way of buying time, because if you don't go with Moscow, the Germans are just gonna invade you, right? If you go with Britain, obviously that's really strong, and as you saw just a couple of minutes ago, we completely annihilated them. But yeah, I suppose this sort of way of doing things is also quite convenient. You just have to wait quite a long time, and that's honestly not all that exciting. But because we're in the Comintern, we can't just justify like Switzerland or Belgium or anything like that, because the allies are going to guarantee them, and that's a bit of a bother. I suppose you could justify on Spain, but they're also going to get guaranteed by the British because they're democratic, the world tension's just sky high, and yeah, I suppose you just have to sit on your hands a bit, which is quite powerful, obviously. You do have quite a lot of stability and manpower by the end of it, but well, not stability, but kind of war support, not manpower, but also manpower, obviously, which is, the one big saving grace of was it mass assault, is that once you have a lot of manpower, it's actually quite good, because, well, you can pump out divisions like there's no tomorrow, and you can just charge in and forget about everything, sort of the, well, yeah, mass assault essentially, which is quite interesting. Obviously you can just defend. You can also play the standard France game if you're playing, planning to go with Moscow. You can also initiate the war yourself, but there's no real need for that, because the Germans are going to attack eventually, and if they don't attack, then the Soviets will attack eventually, and you really don't want to drag the Soviets into a war against Germany while they still have quite a lot of debuffs from the Great Purge. You really don't want to do that, so it's best if you ally the Soviets in any way, shape or form to wait until their debuffs are gone, or maybe do it before they actually do get the debuffs, that's quite difficult if you're gonna be doing communist France, because it takes a little bit of time to actually go communist. So I don't know, maybe if you flip through a civil war, maybe you can think about doing something like that, but it's I don't think it's advisable. But we're actually managing to push back the Germans quite a bit, and they're counterattacking, but because the Low Countries have quite a good fort line, because of the Netherlands, they do build up these fort lines. It's not great, but it's it's something. And there's a lot of rivers here. We can just safely defend. I don't think they'll be able to do really anything against us. Obviously, the Maginot Line's still a thing, and we're completely annihilating the Italians. It's like the longer France waits, the less of a threat the Italians become, just completely. You can just smash through them, because they have to worry about the African front, because they have to worry about the Mediterranean, because they probably are at war with some country in the Balkans. They really can't justify having their entire army against, in the Alpine region against France, and the French just smash through them once they do all their army focuses. So it's the Italians are going to be gone from the equation, and then it's just the Germans, and that's actually going to be quite easy. In the meantime, I managed to build quite a good collaboration government in Germany, because, hey, why not? That's actually one thing that's kind of a downside when going with Moscow, is that when you quote-unquote liberate the Low Countries, you don't get a lot of compliance. In fact, you do gain quite a lot of resistance, because the Germans aren't great at keeping compliance down. Well, basically the AI is just not good at keeping resistance down, not compliance. They're bad at keeping compliance up and resistance down. You inherit that resistance, which is quite troublesome. It's quite strange as well. I mean, you conquer the country, you sort of liberated from Germany. You're an ally to these nations, and you're an ally to these nations even though you're not in the alliance. You should be able to gain at least a little bit more compliance. But obviously, I guess that's just not how it works, and we still do gain quite a lot of resistance in the Low Countries and everywhere. But we're building up that the collaboration government in Germany might actually come in useful. What's interesting here is that the Soviets are still losing. I mean, we took out Italy. Well, we're almost in Germany. The Soviets are still being pushed back. This is actually kind of strange. Maybe the Soviet AI is just terrible nowadays. But I don't think so. I mean, they managed to puppet Finland, which happens sometimes, I guess. But the Comintern is actually quite strong, right? But they're still losing. And they still have a few divisions on my side, which is just the strangest thing ever. But they're losing against the Germans. Well, they're being pushed back. They're winning sometimes, and there we go. The Americans just joined the British, so this should be quite a bit easier. But yeah, as you can see, we essentially had to wait until the same point as the Americans to join the war, which that's not really the appeal of France, right? The appeal of France is that you're in a great position, but also a very dangerous position. The great position is that you're surrounded by a lot of weak countries. Theoretically, you could sort of see yourself as sort of a Germany. You can take over quite a lot of weak countries around you. But the threatening position is that the Germans are there, right? So the conflict comes very fast at France. 1939, 1938, like 2 years into the game, you're already in a war against Germany, eventually against France, and possibly eventually against Japan if you want to join that war. So we had to wait until 1941. I mean, realistically, I suppose this is the easiest path, but it's also just kind of boring, isn't it? I mean, just wait around, don't do anything. I mean, your country's stabilized, you're doing great, but Hearts of Iron is not really a long-term sort of game, right? It's not Victoria 2, it's not Europa Universalis 4, it's not CK2, where you have quite a lot of time to just take over individual states and, slowly build up. The fun in Hearts of Iron 4 is just like, go. You just have to go. The Germans are coming, or the the Russians are coming or whatever, or you have to take these guys out before I don't know, the Americans come or something like that. You know, it's about just being very quick on your feet and, you know, everything like that. But yeah, so that's I don't know. This is just, I mean, we're not gonna lose from this position, but it's gonna take a long time to win, right? So, and here we go. Hopefully, when we capture Germany, because of the high collaboration status, hopefully the Germans are gonna capitulate now. They're still putting up quite a big fight. I don't know. The Germans do have quite a large amount of victory points, so defeating them, capitulating them is probably like the toughest thing in the entire game. But there we go. The fall of Berlin, Vive la France, the liberation of Warsaw. Okay. But, well, there we go. There we go. We managed to annihilate the Germans. Managed to do it with the Soviets, I suppose. Took quite a long time. And, well, with Britain, we did it like that. You know, just completely easily, very swiftly, and painlessly. We can still take out the Low Countries. This is the funnest part about playing a communist nation against Germany. Is that you technically liberate the countries, right? But then you can just take them over. Hey, why not? It's like the funnest part ever. But yeah, I guess I'll be moving on to the last one, which is probably the craziest one. So the last focus path for France to go communist is the loyalty to the cause. Now, the loyalty to the cause is an interesting one because you have to do the revolution to the utmost before you ever manage to do that. Now, it's interesting how well the communist tree for France actually, you know, is performing, which is quite surprising, because usually the communist trees for these individual like great powers are kind of lackluster. I mean, for example, with Britain, that's probably one of the worst focus trees you can imagine as a communist nation. But with France it's actually quite decent, because you do get a lot of bonuses, and you do get a lot of good alliances, and you just have a lot of stuff that generally just benefits France, like more time, and, well, yeah, basically more time. That's all you need as France. You just need time. But with the revolution to the utmost, and the loyalty to the cause, it's definitely quite a very different beast. Now, with this focus tree, the last one, I decided to make Germany go monarchist, as well as reform Austria-Hungary, or make Hungary reform Austria-Hungary, and make Britain go monarchist as well. And this should be an interesting one. I made Britain go monarchist because whenever Germany goes monarchist, well, Britain just tends to tear itself apart. They tend to do the fascist focus path, but before they ever manage to actually flip to fascism, they just guarantee someone because they're still democratic, and then they end up in a civil war, and it's just a complete mess. So I made them go monarchist, and I think we're gonna just roleplay a bit here, because with the revolution to the utmost and then the loyalty to the cause, it's very much like you're role-playing sort of a revolutionary France, and I thought it would be appropriate to move a revolutionary France to a setting where, you know, you have this resurgence of these monarchic powers, these autocratic powers, and it's really up to the revolution to knock it back down or something like that. Just a bit of a role play of the, you know, the first French Revolution, which is sort of the more, you know, sort of the traditional French Revolution when you think about it. It's the one that everyone thinks about, and that one is the focus tree. That is, it's quite epic. That's one thing that I really like about France and the individual paths, and that we went down today, essentially in this video, is that the rhetoric involved with not just the focus names, but also when you look at the individual description, it's so bombastic. It's like it's taken straight out of something from like a socialist realist book from the 1930s or the 1950s. It's quite propagandistic, and that's one thing that I actually kind of like about the French communist focus tree path, because it's like loyalty to the cause, revolution to the utmost. It sounds so epic, whereas with our nations you just have internationalism. Oh yeah, internationalism. Political correctness. It's so boring, right? It just doesn't it doesn't spark any interest when you read through it or when you click the button. But when you see something like Revolution to the Utmost, even though it's kind of cringy and I'm making it sound really cringy, it's well, I think that the interest when it comes to the focus trees, like half of it is just the flavor of it. Like for example, the path to fascism when you play the United States, it's not like you just flip fascists. You can do that. You can just flip through a regular election or something like that. But you can also go through a civil war, recreate the Second American Civil War. Same thing when you go communist as the United States. It's there's a certain amount of flavor I think that is necessary when you go when you make these focus trees for these individual nations. That's something that, for example, Germany does magnificently when you go for the Kaiser, as well as, well, now France, when you go communist, certainly has that sort of feel to it, like the revolution. And that's basically what the loyalty to the cause is basically we're spreading the revolution. You could say that it's sort of an embrace of like the Trotskyite path, as opposed to the sort of the more democratic socialist approach of the anti-fascist bloc, or the anti-fascist, well, basically the path that lets you go down the Allied path, where you join Britain. It's more of a democratic socialist. It's more of a halfway there, halfway not really there. It's more of a political revolution than anything. When you go with loyalty to Moscow, obviously it's sort of like you're supposed to support the Soviets, or you're supposed to act as another Soviet Union on the other side of Europe. Essentially, you're just supposed to be kind of just supporting the Soviets. But with loyalty to the cause, you're essentially becoming the quote-unquote bad guy of Europe. You know how Germany usually has to kickstart every war, and they have to essentially be the one to get all the war goals and essentially annex everyone, attack everyone, etc., etc. They basically gain a majority of their industrial power through annexing other territories. For example, when Germany takes over France, that's like 40% of the industrial power of Germany comes from just annexing northern France and then having Vichy France give them a whole bunch of supporting stuff. At least that's how the AI plays out. And I think this revolution to the utmost slash, well, in continuation of that, you have the loyalty to the cause. I think this is supposed to play out in a very similar way. We're going to be taking over these countries because we're sort of role-playing as the revolutionary era France, and they obviously had a bunch of wars. They had to take over, well, they didn't have to take over, but they took over a bunch of land, and then you had Napoleon, etc., etc., etc. And we're going to be sort of soft role-playing that, because I think it's well, it's just, a bunch of fun, obviously. Alongside the rhetoric, I think this focus path, because obviously I've played before, this loyalty to the cause, I think it's probably the most interesting one. It does look quite a lot of options for France. And so, because we have this magnificent resurgence of the imperialists and the autocrats and the authoritarians and the monarchists around us, well, we're gonna have to give them a bit of a taste of an old revolution. But before any of that, we're gonna have to chop off a few heads. More specifically, we're gonna have to go through a quote-unquote civil war, and this is probably the most pathetic civil war there ever has been. I suppose you could say that it's sort of well, it's sort of a necessity if you're really gonna have like the biggest revolution ever. Well, you're gonna have to have a civil war at least, But really, we killed them in like, what, 3 days? It's, well, not much of a civil war, was it? Alright, the next head that gets chopped is Switzerland, and I think that many people sort of underestimate the industrial power you actually gain from Switzerland. But they have roughly the equivalent industrial power to someone like, well, not exactly the entirety of the Benelux, but maybe like Belgium and the Netherlands combined at the beginning of the game, which is that's actually quite a lot of factories, and they do have very defensible terrain. They sometimes do build up forts, so it's maybe sometimes a bit of a bother to take them over, but they usually build up those forts against the Germans. So when you're attacking from the French side, they don't really expect that. You pull a little sneaky on them, and well, they don't necessarily expect it. In the meantime, we're gonna start a bit of a workers' revolution in Britain, which is one of the more interesting things when it comes to the loyalty to the cause and bringing the revolution to various countries that surround you. Because the various countries do have different effects. I'm sort of split on what to sort of expect when you do the individual revolutions, because for example in Britain you basically just give them a whole bunch of resistance in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and that's it. But it's as opposed to, for example, Italy, where you have like a 30% chance of just plunging Italy into a civil war, right? Same thing with Germany. It's well, I don't know. Some of them seem a little bit too strong, and some of them seem a little bit too weak. However, it takes basically an entire year to start a workers' revolution. So I don't know. It's sort of a mixed blessing. I think you're gonna have to, if you really want to start a workers' revolution in one country, I think you're gonna have to just focus on that one country. Really, really dig a big, deep grave for them, because well, other than, like, for example, the Civil War, it's only 30% chance, and if the Civil War doesn't fire, then you only shift their political spectrum towards communism by, like, I don't know, 20%. You know, the communists get 20% more popularity, and you can just do that, you know, by slamming a few spies there and just boosting popularity of communism for an entire year. You basically achieve the same goal, but, well, I don't know. Well, anyway, next on the chopping block should be Spain. Okay, so they finally managed to finish their civil war, which is probably one of the longest Spanish civil wars I've ever seen. And you know, this new patch or this new version of the game, or in La Résistance, basically. So they shouldn't have that big of a navy. Well, not big of a navy, but also not that big of an army. They also shouldn't have that much of a great industrial, you know, power at all, because Spain kind of struggles post civil war with their industry, obviously. So I think I'll puppet them and let them build up. They still should have their well, Francoist Spain. What is it? Focus tree. Even though we puppet them as a communist nation, so their build up when it comes to their industry should actually be really quick. For some reason, the Francoist path allows you to have some of the quickest industrial just recovery options in the game. So that should be quite fun, and because their army is just complete trash, I don't think we really need to even focus on that war. But yeah, we'll just blast through the entirety of Spain. I don't think we'll bother with Portugal. That's one thing I actually sort of wish the focus tree did, is that when you bring the revolution quote unquote south, or bring the revolution west, it also should give you an option to instigate, for one, the workers' revolution in Portugal, but also to annex Portugal, because, and maybe even create a united Iberian puppet, because well, that's an option for the Portuguese communist tree, and it's also an option in the Spanish communist tree. So I think you should have some sort of an option to do that if you're going with this path. But, well, that's just, you know, a way to do it, obviously. But, as you can see, we're just completely blasting through the Spanish. They just didn't have enough time. And, poor Franco, man, like, he just got out of a civil war with the communist, well, side of Spain. And now he has to deal with a bunch of communist Frenchies just on his doorstep. But, I think we'll take over Catalonia, actually. Because that's, like, the one region that sort of always, whenever you do anything, or whenever you play a historical game, for example Victoria 2 or even Napoleon Total War or whatever, the French always seem to want Catalonia. So I guess we'll just take it over and puppet the rest of Spain, maybe some of the border regions, to make it actually kind of nice, you know, to make it seem that, yeah, we really did fight this war and it wasn't just all looks. And yeah, so I guess we'll do that, but as you can see, the poor Spanish just have nothing, which is to be expected. Even if we gave them like a 1 year to build up, they just wouldn't have anything. And maybe the nations that get targeted by the French revolutionaries should maybe form some sort of a coalition against the French. But the Europe isn't responding at all to this just new threat, this new revolutionary nation. I think that would have been an interesting way to do it, sort of recreate maybe the EU4, like revolutionary status of a nation, by just making the other nations around them create some sort of a coalition. Like, for example, Franco here would definitely ally Italy, or maybe even Britain in this case, because we've already targeted Britain. And, well, Spain and Italy during this period of time obviously had kind of closer relationship. So I think that would have been an interesting one, sort of maybe an anti-French coalition to really roleplay that we are now the bad guys. And, well, yeah, but the bad guys, essentially, during this time period. Because, obviously, the Germans are monarchists now. Maybe something like that happens, but since I made the British go monarchist here... but no, I think they also just don't do anything, even if you... Yeah, even if you make them go democratic, they don't do anything. Unless Churchill is involved. Churchill actually does have... the option to just declare war on any communist nation ever. So if Churchill is involved, then yeah, he would kind of just declare war on us and wouldn't really care about anything. Man, the Spanish really are resisting, fighting to the last man, or the last province more rather, which is quite interesting because they don't have the 100%, well, basically capitulation rate, or whatever you want to call it, the fight to the death, or whatever it's called, when you have the civil war still active. So they should actually be, I don't know, surrendering quite a bit sooner, but they're still fighting. So I don't know, maybe because they conquered like a few provinces in Africa, maybe that's why they're still fighting. Seems a bit wrong, but man, they're still okay. There we go. They can just to punish them, maybe actually, you know, be happy with them that they fought for so long and so valiantly, quote unquote valiantly. It took us like a month to completely annihilate them. We're obviously gonna take everything in Africa because even though we're commies, we're still imperialists, and that's just how it goes. We're yeah. Let's not forget anything, and there we go. Let's take Catalonia, obviously. Let's take a few of these border regions to make it look nice and proper. Yeah, I think those, those are the natural borders of France. Obviously, that's our clay now. And let's puppet the rest. And yeah, there we go. So the sudden recreation of, I don't know, would they even be called National Spain anymore? Are they going to be called, yeah, Republican Spain, obviously. So, Republican Spain, It should maybe be called, like, the Commune of Spain or something like that, but meh, I guess that's okay. The Democratic Republic of Spain, there we go. So, yeah, they definitely still have the Francoist color, so they still have the Francoist focus tree. That's just how it works. The color dictates the focus tree, and when it comes to Spain, that's something you just, well, you just have to accept. So, yeah, well, there we go. Might as well garrison all these ports, because, well, the next war is gonna be quite a spicy one. Okay, never mind. I was gonna invade Britain, and it was gonna be fun, but the Germans attacked me. The Central Powers attacked me, and now we have to fight off the Germans and the Austro-Hungarians. Wonderful. Wonderful stuff, but the Germans are already at war with the Soviets, so... I don't know, but wasn't really gonna be, like, loyal to Moscow, guys. I was just gonna have a bit of fun in Western Europe. But, and they don't even have any armies here. Like, what the hell are you thinking? They already been fighting against the... Yeah, there we go. They already been fighting against the Soviets for quite a while, so maybe that's why all their armies are just there. I don't know. Can't really drag it over the... that's one thing that really bothers me about Hearts of Iron 4 to this day, is that the frontline system doesn't allow you to just, like, cover a bit of a front line that's, like, unrelated to the guy you're immediately at war with, but, you know, the Austria-Hungary is gonna join the war in, like, 3 days or something, so, but we can't have a front line there, haha, because I don't know why, you know, we have to do it separately, and that's just kind of annoying, but, there we go. Well, we're attacking Germany again for, like, the 5th time this video, but hey, this is again a defensive war. We didn't initiate anything, we're just here having our revolution, and Mr. Kaiser just wasn't having any of it, or Kaiser-chan I suppose, because we have the Anime no Sekai mod on. Kaiser-chan wasn't having any of it, so we have to destroy Germany as well, I guess. Oh, but wait a moment, okay, looks like Britain's having some fun as well, so looks like, you know, the original plan's still a go. I don't know, why aren't they communist? It was supposed to be a workers' revolution. They definitely should be communist. Why is Wales democratic? Now that's a bit of a... Is that a bug or something? Like, a workers' revolution, but they're... And Scotland was also supposed to flip, so... It's led by the same girl. Okay, so they're democratic workers' uprisings done by communist France. Okay, yeah, that's Wales. Okay, so now the British are fighting against the former dominions as well. And that means that they should be fighting against the USA pretty soon, if not already anyway. Haven't really been paying attention too much to that side of the world. So, well, this is an interesting one. Looks like, yeah, looks like we're still going to be fighting against the British. So, might as well, you know, bring out that big old navy. And since they're fighting against the Commonwealth, I don't think they're going to have any kind of oil because, well, only if they really import it from like the United States or something. But I think that's not going to be really happening. And if they try to import it, well, they're just going to run into our navy. So might as well just yeah, try a bit of an invasion of the British Isles. It's not really all that difficult. It's just the Germans. Might as well, you know, import. And because the Germans are just kind of weak right now, we aren't really moving the front line that much. So might as well just push a bit. But because the front lines aren't really, you know, being pushed back by the Germans at all, might as well just, you know, do a bit of a sneaky on the British here and help the. We're only trying to help Wales and Northern Ireland here, you know, instigate the workers' revolution and everything. So it's completely legitimate, and Britain joined the Central Powers. Obviously, I think they should have an option to join the Central Powers regardless, but they can only join Nazi Germany. So, well, might as well just go with it, and well, hopefully we'll be able to. Northern Ireland joined the comment. Okay, so when France does its revolution, the entire world just gets messed up. It just gets messed up every which way. Okay, I guess they joined the Comintern. They're democratic, and the British are at war with the Commonwealth of Nations. But instead of joining the Commonwealth of Nations, they joined the Comintern? Okay then, but we're already in the British Isles, by the way. It's that easy to invade them, especially if they go monarchist, because they don't have any kind of, well, relevant oil supply. There we go, Scotland. Scotland joined the Commonwealth of Nations. Wonderful. So that means they're probably democratic anyway. So, but let's focus on this invasion first. Because they don't have a good oil supply, they always get wrecked, even base game. But when they go monarchist, they have even less access to oil, and so they get even more wrecked. They basically just can't maintain their entire navy in the English Channel, which means that we can just destroy them and invade the British Isles. No, it used to be kind of difficult, you know, before the fuel thing, but it's not really difficult at all nowadays. You can just completely smash them, and that's just how it goes there, really. But Wales has already capitulated because, well, I think they started with like one division or something, don't they? I don't know, haven't really checked, but I think, you know, they should start off with like one division or something. I think that's also what's happening with Northern Ireland. But hell, there we go. We're now part of the good guy club, obviously. Well, part of the Comintern more rather than, you know, the Commonwealth of Nations, but might as well, you know, we're solid here. Where are the British? Where are the British? Where is their army? There's just nothing here. We're absolutely smashing. Well, not really smashing, but it's more of an even fight in the English Channel. But yeah, might as well just bomb them. But the English army is just gone. There's just no English army. It's 1941 and the British just aren't at home. The British just went to Africa, like, yeah, whatever. Maybe they actually were in Africa, because that's like one of our only direct borders with Britain. So they thought that because we had that war go on them, that we were gonna declare war and fight it out in Africa. What are you, stupid? Obviously we're just gonna instigate a workers' revolution, make Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales revolt, and then just invade. Obviously that's gonna happen. But so now they're just England, basically. I think they shouldn't even be Great Britain at all. They're just England, because Great Britain or the United Kingdom, if you release Scotland, Northern Ireland, or just, yeah, basically Northern Ireland, or just give Ireland back, that region, and Wales, they basically just flip to England, right? So yeah, now they're just England, but they're still called. Yeah, well, that's just how it goes, and well, should be fun, shouldn't it? So hopefully this war is going to be over very quickly. Do get a few combat bonuses from you know, the permanent revolution, the revolution to the utmost, and basically just role-playing revolutionary era France as a combination. We do gain quite a few industrial and quite a few just army bonuses, so that should be quite easy. But ultimately, I think this is the funnest path that you can go down when you play Communist France, because the other ones, the one where you join the Allies, it's okay, but you're just joining Allies. You're just playing a democratic France that has a bit of a backbone when it comes to like gameplay options. You know, you have more options, you're more powerful, you have more industry, you have more manpower, you have more research, everything like that. When you play with the there we go, Great Britain, but they had the English flag. Okay, so we control England now. Kingdom of England. Okay, so they flipped to England just as they lost. Well, there we go. That's some hardcore logic for you. Okay, I just remembered what I was talking about. So out of all the options for Communist France, I think this is the most interesting one, because obviously join the Allies, but the loyalty to Moscow it's not terrible, but it's just, you know, like you're playing any other communist nation ever. You know, you just join the Comintern, and then you sit there, maybe help the Spanish a bit, yeah, maybe, I don't know, do nothing. That's just how it goes usually. But with the loyalty to the cause, it actually gives you quite a lot of options for expansion. Even if it's not a historical game, as you see, we can do quite a lot of stuff. Whereas with the loyalty to Moscow, it's well, no matter what Germany does, no matter which ideology Germany has, they always end up fighting the Soviet Union. So with loyalty to Moscow, you always end up fighting the Germans the same way. Now, in this case, they also declared war on us because they did break the colonial hegemony focus, obviously. But other than that, I don't think we would be fighting Germany if they were, for example, democratic. When it comes to loyalty to Moscow, it's just boring, and in non-historical games, it's probably even more boring. If the Soviet Union doesn't really have any sort of direct enemy, you're just gonna have to wait until like 1940, I don't know, 2 or 3 to really get any action at all, and that's just not really fun. You can't really expand to anyone that's directly around you, because well, the Allies are just gonna guarantee them, and then you're just gonna end up fighting the Allies as well as the Axis. You can definitely do that, but it's not advisable. A better option, I think, would be to beat the Germans and then maybe go against the Allies, but you don't really have any unique flavor when it comes to you don't have any unique options, you don't have any unique like national spirit or something like that. If you go with the loyalty to Moscow, you can only have like more, well, you gain more, you can send more volunteers, like 4 more volunteers or something, and then you can gain more compliance in Germany. And that's it. You know, that's it. It's kind of underwhelming. It sort of expects you to basically just wait around. Then you have the Allies. That's just the Allies, obviously, but with this sort of revolution to the utmost, and then you have loyalty to cause. You're basically playing the bad guy. You invade everyone. You try to spread the revolution. You instigate the revolutions, everything like that. It has very distinct flavor to it. It has a very distinct flavor to it. It has a very distinct sort of gameplay style to it. You're supposed to be on the offensive, spreading the revolution, attacking, and you do have quite a lot of bonuses to do that. So out of all the individual focus tree paths for Communist France, I think this one's probably the funnest one, especially if you roleplay a bit and you like take a few provinces here and there, puppet the rest of the country. I think that's sort of within the spirit of like spreading the revolution, but also maintaining this sort of hegemony within your sphere of influence, basically, because you can't spread the revolution, for example, to the United States or to Japan or anywhere like that. You can only attack, well, Germany, obviously, Italy, Spain, and Britain. And that's it, really. You can't really spread the revolution to, like, I don't know, America, Canada, the Americas, everything like that. I think that's more within the scope of the communist tree, and the Spanish communist tree, and their sort of, you know, hegemony over like the Americas, the South Americas, the former Spanish colonies, and obviously the sort of more global, communist stuff is sort of the Trotskyite option, the Trotsky option in the Soviet Union, but even then, you know, the focus that's how it should be, but obviously it's not, because the Soviet focus tree sucks. So there we go. The communists really get the short end of the stick usually, but with this one, the French communist focus tree is actually really good, because it gives you a lot of option, a lot of flexibility, a lot of power, and especially when you spread the revolution, it's well, it has a nice flavor to it, nice feel to it. I think it's a very strong focus tree. If you just want to roleplay the bad guy a bit, you're sort of sick and tired of just sitting on your ass and doing nothing, just defending against the Germans on and on and on, which is usually what you do whenever you play Germany, whenever you play France. It's sort of a similar feel to the Napoleonic focus tree path you have, or the Napoleon focus tree path you have with France, but with this one, you do gain actually quite a lot of bonuses up front, and then at the end, whereas with Napoleon you gain one big bonus at the end. But you still have to fight Germany, you still have to fight Italy, everything like that. I guess with this tree you can sort of preempt the attack. You can also instigate the revolutions in those countries, and so it's I think it has quite a nice balance to it. And there we go, that's the entire communist package for France. Now explored, thoroughly analyzed, and well, it's actually quite fun. Out of all the communist paths, out of all the communist focus tree paths for each and every nation, this game, I think the French have the best one, because it gives you a lot of options, gives you a lot of paths, gives you a lot of well, just variety in gameplay style. You can join the Allies, you can join the Comintern, you can do your own revolutionary path. I think that's just a nice balance. You can do basically everything within the communist path that you can do as democratic France, but a little bit more spicy, you know, a little bit more spicy, like infinite manpower, like joining the Comintern. That's not really spicy, but like instigating the revolution to the utmost, everything like that. That's really cool, and I think I kind of like the spirit of it. So there we go. Out of all the commie paths, I think the French have the best one. So thanks, Kings, for watching the Augustus Maximus channel. Hopefully you'll be back for some more, well, just strategy gameplay, isn't it? So yeah, see you next time.